Hey, everybody, and welcome to this deep dive
Uh-huh.
all about raising awesome kids.
Ooh,
We're going to be looking at this article from the blog Your Global Family.
okay.
It's called How to Raise Awesome Kids in a World of Chaos.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
That's a good one.
just the title alone is enough to make you want to grab a coffee and just settle in for this one, right?
It really is. I think it definitely captures, the feeling that so many parents have today.
Yeah.
And, one thing I find really interesting about this article is that it doesn't really give, like, a rigid set of rules.
Right.
It's not like do this and don't do that. It's really more about, like, a foundational approach to family, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, let's dive into some of those
Yeah.
foundational principles.
Yeah?
The first one, and they really hammer this home,
Uh-huh.
is unconditional love.
Okay.
But they don't just say love your kids no matter what. The author actually shares a story about a friend who was disowned by his family for being gay.
Wow.
And it's really a stark reminder that unconditional love means accepting our children
Yeah.
for, all of who they are, even when their choices or their
Ah,
identities might
yeah.
be different from
Right.
what we expected or what we had planned for.
Exactly. And, that anecdote really highlights the impact of conditional love,
Yeah.
but it also, I think, raises the question for us, like,
Yeah.
what does unconditional love look like in our own families?
Yeah.
How do we create that environment of acceptance?
That's a great question. And it's easy to say, I love my kids unconditionally, but putting it into practice, I think,
Right.
is
Right.
that's the real challenge,
Absolutely.
especially when those teenage years hit.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that actually leads really well into the next principle that they talk about in the article.
Okay.
They call it studying your child. And it's not about being a helicopter parent or anything like that. It's really about taking the time to truly understand your child's evolving needs and interests.
Uh-huh.
Like, what are they passionate about? What are they struggling with?
Yeah.
What makes them tick?
Okay, but how do you actually study your child without making them feel like they're under a microscope? Any practical tips?
Well, the article mentions that the author's husband actually wrote a whole book about this.
Oh, wow.
It's called Parenting from the Periphery.
Okay.
And it's specifically aimed at parents of 12 to 16-year-olds.
Okay.
Although, I think a lot of the concepts can apply to other ages as well.
Yeah.
But the idea is to kind of provide guidance and support
Mm-hmm.
without being overly controlling.
Right.
Think of it like you're being a consultant,
I like that.
offering advice and resources when needed,
Yeah.
but ultimately respecting your child's
Right.
autonomy.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. Finding that balance between being involved and giving them space to grow. Exactly. But isn't it difficult to kind of step back? Especially when you see your kid making what you think are mistakes?
It can be incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the next principle comes in, and that's open communication.
Okay.
And this isn't just about, talking to your kids. It's about creating a space
Uh-huh.
where they feel safe to talk to you honestly without fear of judgment
Mm-hmm.
or punishment.
So no yelling, lecturing, I told you so moments.
Exactly. The article specifically advises against all of those things.
Okay.
Instead, it encourages parents to approach conversations with empathy and understanding,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's hard.
Yeah.
The goal is to build trust through open communication,
Right.
because that trust is really the foundation for a healthy relationship, both now and when your children become adults.
Okay, that makes sense. But this emphasis on long-term relationships is that where the end game comes in. It's a bit of an intense term, right? Like some strategic parenting master plan.
Yeah, I think they use endgame just to highlight, the importance of being intentional about the kind of relationship you want with your adult children.
Right.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day chaos of parenting
Yeah.
and lose sight of the bigger picture.
But how do you actually plan for that? Is there some secret formula?
Well, the article shares a really interesting finding from a multi-year study.
Okay.
And it said that the quality of the parent-child relationship during the ages of 6 to 12
Wow.
is the strongest predictor of a positive relationship in adulthood.
Really?
They call these the memory-making years.
That's cool.
Pretty cool, right?
So it's not the teenage years that are the most impactful. You'd think those would be the make it or break it years.
I know, right?
Okay.
That's what I thought, too.
But the research actually suggests that those earlier years, when kids are still so open and eager to connect, are actually the most crucial for building those strong bonds that will last a lifetime. This is already giving me so much to think about. But before we move on, could you give an example of what those, like, memory-making moments might look like in practice?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be something, as simple as having like a weekly family game night,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you start a tradition of making pancakes together every
Oh.
Sunday morning.
Uh-huh.
It's really about those small rituals that create a sense of connection
Right.
and give your kids something to look back on fondly.
That's so reassuring to hear. It doesn't have to be some grand, elaborate vacation or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of broadening horizons,
Okay.
the article also emphasizes the importance of cultivating an open learning mindset in your children.
Okay.
It's about fostering curiosity, adaptability, and a willingness to embrace new perspectives.
That makes total sense, especially in today's world.
Right.
But how do you actually, like, teach those qualities?
Well, the article stresses that the best way is to model them yourself.
Okay.
Children are incredibly perceptive. So if they see you constantly learning, adapting, and approaching the world with curiosity, they're more likely to do the same.
So being a lifelong learner is a good parenting strategy.
Exactly.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But the article also mentions raising global citizens.
Oh,
Can you elaborate on what that means?
that's a great question. It's about raising children who are not only aware of different cultures and perspectives,
Okay.
but who also understand the interconnectedness of our world and the challenges we face as a global community.
Right.
It's about fostering empathy and a sense of responsibility for the world around them.
Okay, so it's more than just teaching them about different countries and languages.
Right.
It's about helping them see themselves as part of something bigger.
Exactly. And it starts with simple things,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
encouraging them to try new foods,
Uh-huh.
read books from different cultures,
Okay.
or watch documentaries about different parts of the world.
Right.
It's about exposing them to diverse perspectives
Mm-hmm.
and helping them understand that there are many different ways of living and being in the world.
I love that. It's about expanding their worldview beyond their immediate bubble.
Yeah.
But the article also talks about teaching kids about global issues, like climate change, poverty, social justice.
Right.
That feels a little daunting, to be honest. How do you even begin to tackle those topics with kids?
I know it can feel overwhelming,
Yeah.
but the key is to start small
Okay.
and meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Answer their questions honestly.
Right.
Engage in age-appropriate conversations.
Uh-huh.
And look for resources,
Okay.
books, documentaries, even children's news websites
Yeah.
that can help them make sense of these complex issues.
So it's about providing them with the information and tools they need to understand the world around them,
Right.
but also empowering them to feel like they can make a difference.
Exactly. And remember, you don't need to have all the answers.
All right.
It's okay to say, I don't know, but let's find out together.
Mm-hmm.
Modeling that curiosity and willingness to learn is just as important as providing the information itself.
That's a great point. It's about showing them that learning is a lifelong journey, not just something you do in school.
Exactly.
Speaking of learning, the article also stresses the importance of teaching kids to be critical thinkers,
Yeah.
to question assumptions, evaluate information,
Ah.
form their own opinions. In
Right.
today's world, with all the misinformation out there, that feels more crucial than ever.
Absolutely. It's about equipping them with the tools to navigate that information overload
Yeah.
and make informed decisions.
Right.
And again, it starts with modeling those behaviors yourself.
Okay.
Show them that you question the news you read,
Uh-huh.
you consider different perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
and you're willing to change your mind when presented with new evidence.
So it's less about telling them what to think and more about teaching them how to think.
Exactly. And creating a space where they feel safe to challenge your ideas.
Right.
Express their own opinions, even if those opinions differ from yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's about raising independent thinkers who can engage in respectful dialogue
Yeah.
and contribute to a more informed and compassionate world.
That's a powerful idea. It's about letting go of the need to be right and embracing the opportunity to learn and grow alongside our children.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the article ties all of these principles
Yeah.
back to that initial idea of unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
It's about loving and accepting our children for who they are,
Right.
even as they develop their own beliefs and perspectives,
Yeah.
even when those beliefs and perspectives challenge our own.
That's such an important point. Unconditional love doesn't mean we have to agree with everything our kids say or do,
Right.
but it does mean respecting them as individuals
Yeah.
and supporting them on their own unique journeys.
Absolutely.
It's about letting their light shine, even if it looks different from our own.
I love that.
But speaking of journeys, I'm curious to hear what stood out to you the most from this deep dive.
For me, it was that reminder that there's no one right way to raise awesome kids.
Okay.
But by focusing on these core principles,
Yeah?
unconditional love, open communication, global awareness, critical thinking, we can empower our children to navigate the challenges of our world and make a positive impact.
That's a great takeaway. It takes the pressure off having to be a perfect parent and instead focuses on building those strong, loving relationships that will hopefully last a lifetime.
Exactly.
As we're wrapping up this deep dive into how to raise awesome kids in a world of chaos,
Yeah.
I keep coming back to that idea of the end game
Right.
and those crucial memory-making years from ages 6 to 12. It's a lot to consider.
It is.
Especially when, we're often just trying to get through the day.
Right. It's true. Parenting can feel like a constant juggling act.
Yeah.
But I think that's why the article's emphasis on intentionality is so valuable,
Right.
We may not be able to control every aspect of our children's lives.
Yeah.
But we can choose to focus on those things
Right.
that truly matter in the long run.
So how do we make the most of those memory-making years? Even amidst the everyday chaos, any practical advice?
Well, the articles suggest something surprisingly simple.
Okay.
Prioritizing quality time with our kids.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be, hours on end.
Right.
Even just 15 minutes of truly present, engaged interaction
Yeah.
can make a world of difference.
It's about putting down the phones, tuning out the distractions, and really being there with them.
Exactly. And it's about creating those shared experiences, those memory-making moments. It doesn't need to be anything elaborate or expensive.
Right.
A family game night, a hike in the woods baking cookies together. It's those little rituals that build connection
Yeah.
and create lasting memories.
And I love how the article emphasizes the importance of finding joy in the journey.
Oh, absolutely.
Letting go of the pressure to be perfect parents.
Yeah.
And embracing the messy, chaotic, often hilarious reality of family life.
It's about celebrating those silly moments, the inside jokes, the shared laughter. Those are the things that weave the fabric of a strong and loving relationship.
It makes me realize that even though this deep dive focused on raising kids, a lot of these principles apply to relationships in general.
Oh, for sure.
Being present, communicating, openly, embracing differences.
Yeah.
Fostering shared experiences. That's how we build strong connections,
Exactly.
no matter the age or context.
Absolutely. It's about tapping into those fundamental human needs for connection, belonging, and love.
Right.
And those needs don't disappear when our kids become adults.
No.
In fact, they become even more important as we navigate the complexities of life together.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
What's one small but meaningful step you can take today to nurture these qualities in your children? Maybe it's having dinner together without any screens, planning a family game night, or simply telling your kids how much you love and appreciate them.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, remember that even the smallest actions can create a ripple effect, shaping not only their present,
Right.
but also the future of your relationship.
Beautifully said. And remember, parenting isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, being present, and loving your children for who they are.
Yeah.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep those lines of communication open.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into raising awesome kids. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep connecting.